How can something so simple as pedaling up a mountain and then going down the other side be so rewarding? Almost up. Oh, that's a lot of exposure. Lots of rock all over the place.
Hey guys, welcome back. It is the morning of day 2. We just had breakfast. I didn't feel like pulling my camera out that early. We got up at 5:30 a.m. Insanely cold. But this is what I wanted to show you. The sun is just peeking over the mountains. Makes for this awesome lighting. This is the only day we're staying at a full campsite. Starting tonight, it's backcountry. We are leaving Molas Lake because today we're gonna go onto the Colorado Trail. Climb begins. Rolling Mountain, which goes from Molas to Bolam Pass, is probably one of the most demanding days I've ever had on a bike. Consequentially, it's one of the hardest videos to actually fit into the 15-minute format I'm going for.
Got it. Nice. Thank you. But you can go ahead. I think you're faster.
This ride was 23 miles long, had 4,500 feet of elevation, and took a whopping 7.5 hours. Granted, only 4 3/4 of those were actually moving according to Strava.
How long have we been climbing? 45 minutes? An hour?
I know. Feels like forever.
I love the wildflowers. They're so beautiful.
When you look at the raw numbers, 23 miles and 4,500 feet of climbing doesn't really seem like that much. I've done plenty of rides like this. The detail on this one is that you start at 10,500 feet, and after climbing continuously to 11,500, you basically stay at that elevation while traversing up and down terrain that gradually pushes you up to the 12,500 foot mark. I guess what I'm trying to say is, be aware that there's a lot of this that I'm not showing you. My initial cut was nearly 35 minutes long, so I've trimmed down a lot of the non-essentials for this video.
First night of camping was pretty cool. It got significantly cold towards like 3 a.m. But, you know, right sleeping bag and a few layers. It's just so nice to sleep in that cool, cold weather. It's so awesome here.
Part of the reason we saw such a difference between the moving and total time was keeping the group together. Of course, the other was just sheer exhaustion towards the end, but more on that later. Out here, we're really in the middle of nowhere, so it becomes even more important for everyone to be able to ride their own pace and to have access to supplies if needed at any point in time. I found this to be kind of crazy.
Thank you.
We actually spotted a few people who were running the first section of Rolling Mountain to then run down Engineer Mountain, which you saw in last week's video. If this is hard on a bike, I can't imagine what it's like to run it. So despite talking a lot about the climbing, I'm not trying to take anything away from the descending. Even in these traverse sections, where the up and down really isn't that steep, the riding is amazingly fast, natural, and flowy.
This section with this tall vegetation is so cool. Some of these crosses are a little scary. A lot of exposure. Thank you. Happiness is most definitely a bicycle. How can something so simple as pedaling up a mountain and then going down the other side can be so rewarding? I love these chunky sections. Making me work hard. So I'm pushing this section a little bit, mostly because see stuff like this, those like pedal bursts that you have to do to get over it really tire me out. I think we're around 12,000 feet. My heart rate is sky high right now, so taking it a little bit easy. I'm feeling the breathing for sure.
If you take a look at the vegetation around this area, the elevation starts to become pretty obvious. We've left the tree line far behind and it's mostly just shrubbery. Now that I'm reviewing the video, I'd even say my riding was just a tad bit wonky, which I really didn't notice at the time. So who knows, maybe the elevation was getting to me more than just in the breathing.
I was just thinking that I usually, when I'm riding slow, say sorry because this or that. Today, it's like I'm not gonna say sorry. I am working so hard at this elevation that you're getting a slow climb. Deal with it. We're getting close to the pass, and just pedaling in flat ground has my heart rate pinging almost up.
If you saw my Bennett Gap video, you probably remember we talked about how you can enjoy the grind of the climb. I feel like this ride perfectly represents that.
But look at that view. All worth it.
Brutal, prolonged climbing with lots of hike-a-bike. But you get rewarded during the climb with these amazing views and experiences. Plus, this is the last push to get to the pass, after which we got nearly 20 minutes of continuous descending.
We're summiting the big climb. This is right around 12,500. And the view here is killer. I'll follow you for a bit, Philip.
After taking a nice break, eating some pack sandwiches that we had, and a good breather, it was time to reap our reward. Miles and miles of exposed, view-filled descending.
Oh, that's a lot of exposure. Whoa. Off camber as this is a fun challenging trail. Super loose. Lots of rock all over the place. The switchbacks kind of sneak up on you. Nice and rocky here. Taking it easy. Cautious on the pedal strikes. Got a little squirrely there. That is some challenging stuff. These switchbacks are pretty brutal. I have a killer time getting around them. Okay, this is the creek. That was great. Killer riding, dude.
Man, so much fun.
That made all the climbing worth it.
All the first part of climbing, that is. We knew we had to climb a bit more before we got to the last peak of the day, we just didn't know how much more we had to go. Thankfully, the highest elevation this time was only going to be at 11,700, where we could still kind of breathe. So despite the fact that we had to do 2 climbs in one day, the seriously challenging was only the first one. The second time, it was more because of the fact that we were seriously tired at this point.
Some pretty solid hike-a-bike. This is our second and final climb of the day. After we get to the top, it's a short descent down to camp, and then it's beer time.
As before, whether for good or bad, the climbing had some descending sprinkled into it, which made for nice spots to take a tiny little break from the actual pedaling.
I am beat. Hell yeah.
How was that?
Good work.
It was horrible in a good way.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, turn around, man.
Wow.
And so we had summited our last big climb of the day. The beers were getting closer. We just had one last, not so steep, but still great fun descent to go. As you get closer to Bolam Pass, it's one of the few sections where the lines start to spread out. It doesn't feel as single-tracky, and they're reminding me a little bit more of how a place like Moab feels, for example. Just before the camp, we actually veered off onto the main road. Since our support vehicle had to drive in, it was an easier way to spot where the campsite was going to be. In the end, it was an absolutely superb day. I was exhausted, but I was so happy to get to the camp and so happy that I had actually achieved this with all the people that were surrounding us. Somehow, it felt kind of like a shared victory.
Nice. That was a killer day of riding. Check this out. We are actually on the Colorado Trail, which is this one right there. There's a lake down that way. I'm gonna go now in a while, but probably won't bring the camera. Well guys, that's it for today. Day 2 in the books. I hope you had fun with me. I will see you for the next one, and happy riding.
I'm a snake.
You ever see that YouTube video? I am a